Welcome to Manufacturing Talk Radio, your everything manufacturing podcast, with host and veteran manufacturing industry expert Louis Weiss and co-host Amy Niklas. Make sure to check out our catalog of 800 previous shows on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. Now, let's get into the episode.
Welcome everyone to another session with Manufacturing Talk Radio, and we're here pleased to have Susan Spence, who's the committee chair for ISM, the Institute for Supply Management, the manufacturing report, which everybody waits with bated breath, and they won't be disappointed today because it's the highest number since May of 2022. So, Susan, welcome aboard.
Thanks. Hey, Amy. Hey, Lou. Happy to be here. Really happy to be giving some pretty good news with our report. So, as you mentioned, the PMI is the highest since May of 2022. We came in at 55.6. We don't always beat the consensus estimate, but we did this month. The estimate, I believe, from Wall Street Journal was 54. So we're, we've beat that. That's great. As exciting as it is, with a 7 month in a row of expansion and 7 to 9 months in factors like new orders, backlog, production, I have been waiting for that employment number to breach 50, and indeed it did. And we have been able to have a number of 52.8 on employment. And that is finally an expansion after 34 months of consecutive contraction. And I think it's 42 months of contraction. So I've said... Can you bring up the chart? Yeah, please bring up the chart. I have said throughout last year that I did not believe that companies were going to start hiring in the midst of tariff chaos, not knowing what the economic policy was going to be week to week, let alone month to month. Things settled down on that with the February ruling from SCOTUS. Things are settling down more, in my opinion, with last Friday's announcement of the 10 to 12% tariffs for Section, I believe it's 130. Not a surprise to anybody that got announced as soon as the SCOTUS ruling happened. More certainty on what's going to happen with these manufacturers' raw material prices means more comfort level in things like hiring. And then, of course, no one's hiring without a strong order flow. So look at the numbers in the trend for things like, the demand inputs, new orders, customer backlog of orders, new export orders. New export orders taking a 4.5% leap is big. The only demand indicator not in contraction is customer inventory. And as a reminder, low is good means that customers have used the inventory on the shelf and have to reorder. So really excited about that. Pricing, I'm excited that the trend downward, again, we're still in increases pricing, but we're tamping down on the volatility every month. I think this is the third in a row where the increase is slowing down. Yeah. I'll take a pause and a breath there.
So Susan, you had mentioned that a lot of companies said that consumer inventories are still too low. Does that mean that we could see shortages or longer waits now for certain products coming in the coming months?
Well, that's already happening, but maybe not to the consumer. The companies in our survey also, in their sentiment about their general comments and sentiment, this month for the first time, I measured the percent of negative comments in general related to lead time, and it was 22%. So if you made a negative comment, 1 in 4 chance that it was about lead time. It was typically lead time as, not only is it short, but it's up in price. So if you're in a sector making or needing products like memory and circuit boards and things like that, and you're competing with data centers who are buying everything up because they're building these huge data centers and about to activate. One of the comments, it's not the biggest sector, but electrical and appliances, right? And, it's like, okay, and cars, autos, in some cases, a few months ago, I remember seeing a few comments about, I can't get sensors for the automobiles that we're making because, the data centers are buying them all up, right? So, you kind of see that. So if inventories are too low, I think more about that means that the customers have to order, even if they were holding off because they didn't know what the prices were going to look like because of tariffs.
Right.
So it's a good thing because it typically means they're hitting a trigger point where they have to reorder.
Okay. All right, great.
There was one to one of your points there. There was an expression used by one of your responders about shuffling and shifting markets,
Yeah.
which really says it all. I've never
Yeah.
heard that expression before.
Yeah, it was a good one.
That's
Yeah,
a great one.
Yeah, I mean, I try to pick comments that are representative of the general sentiment. So if you have out of 10 comments, or out of 100 comments, I'm making that number up. If 60% are positive and 40% are negative, I'm going to try to pick 6 and 4, right?
Right.
But sometimes there are comments like that, shifting and shuffling, or I crave the days of the coronavirus. It's like, what? But, underlying another comment, I think it was primary metals. It's not the biggest sector, but overall, the economy is strong, but then there's factors like pricing and lead times, and so those are important too because if they highlight what the overall trend is, then it's going to make it in that report. And sometimes it's just really interesting to remind our audience, the sectors can be very different, but what's been interesting about the last year, and this happened to be in a negative way, but the patterns were the same. Not hiring people because we don't know what's going to happen with economic policy, and that's driving pricing. Customers aren't ordering because they just can't take what we'd have to charge them because of what we're having to pay for raw materials.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. And I talk to a lot of people in manufacturing, and being that I'm also from the metal sector, I talk to people from the metal sector, and they're all saying the same thing. One in particular said they have the largest back order they've ever had, and that's in a questionable, or has been a questionable market.
Yeah.
And yet they have the largest, after 50 years, they have the largest backlog they've ever had.
Yeah.
So those are pretty good, enthusiastic signs.
Yeah. And again, for sure, some's pent up demand. Some is getting ahead of what we think the next tariff's going to be. I would imagine some of the ordering that happened in May and June was because people knew that 150 days was up in July, and that was a time frame for the tariffs that were in place to run out. And we knew the administration, because they told us they wanted to not have any daylight in between expiring and new, even if the percent you could tax was a whole lot lower.
And taking into account seasonability, this is the summer. This is August, and they're record numbers. I mean, it's fabulous. September. I used to treat September on as the beginning of a marketing year, and we're 2 months early.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't drop off.
I hope not.
See, I just jinxed us.
So, Susan, I wanted to ask you, so we talked about how like pricing for manufacturers are still rising, though a little bit slower from last month. So when do those higher costs usually get passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices for cars and appliances and electronics or everyday household goods?
It's a great question, and I don't know how to answer it for this reason. The tariff chaos of last year had companies trying to figure out when to pass on and when to absorb, right? And what was tough about that, in itself it's tough, but when the tariff policy kept changing and folks were trying to, and looking around at the competitors, who's passing on and who's not. And then you had inflation and then the war driving it up even further. Some of the companies like, listen, I absorbed, I'm just, I'm summarizing. I might have absorbed half of that tariff increase, but now I've got oil through the roof and transportation through the roof, fertilizer. I can't do that anymore. I got to pass it on. it depends on the sector, but it also depends on the times, right?
Yeah. That makes
The question is, if something's passed on and then it comes down, will those companies pass on the lower prices? Well, gas stations do after a period of time, but yeah, we're speculating earlier. What never does come back down?
right.
There's a whole psychology about, okay, customers used to paying it. Why would you go back to the way it was? Well, there's something called gouging you can't do, but
Yeah, I think Lou and I were talking about that earlier. I think he made a comment where it was, have you ever heard of a prescription price going down ever again,
only when I switch to generics.
airline tickets,
Yeah.
prescription prices and airline tickets.
Yeah, I mean, there's a story, how true it is, I don't know, about the whole bag fees. Whenever that started becoming a thing, and it was supposed to be temporary, and it's like, wait a minute, this is a hell of a revenue stream, and now the consumer's used to it, they're numb to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't get any accolades for lowering prices from their customers.
Well, because it's a commodity, and people are going to shop for the lowest fare, whatever. It depends on how loyal you are to an airline, but the whole psychology is very interesting.
One of the things in your comments, responder comments about the domestic steel companies
Yeah,
are beginning to price greedily.
greedily. Yeah.
And that just opens the door for more imports.
It could, unless the tariff makes it non-economical. There's a comment about, I'm going to charge whatever the market will bear, as long as it's legal. You could argue that. You could also argue they're making up for years when they weren't making profit. I don't know. I got asked earlier today, did you see the manufacturing footprint expand because of reshoring the way the administration said it would? It's like, not this group of companies, and this is not just a handful of companies, it's hundreds and hundreds. It had the opposite effect in some cases.
And that's what they're talking about with regards to steel.
Yeah.
Because the steel market, I sort of follow it from the distance, and they're unabashedly raising prices.
Because they can.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You keep price testing, they call it.
Yeah, well, right. What will the market bear? Isn't that what that means, right?
Exactly.
I think about like auto industry and cars, and I was speculating at some of the commodities on the up in price list for like 32 months, and how expensive is a new car. Someone said something to me the other day, and it just blew my mind. They said, my car's not that old, but I can't stand low tech. I need to have Apple CarPlay, Bluetooth enabled. And I'm like, I would never thought that would be a thing, but our car is, in some cases, it's got to be as good as the phone. I'm on the road for 2 hours. I got to be able to, whatever. It's not just talking on the phone, which I tend to like to do because whatever, my, Pandora station keeps me entertained for only so long. But you think about technology and GPS, and, I don't want to look down at my phone that's got Waze on it because I'm going to take my eyes off the road. So what if my dashboard, I had this in Europe on a vacation I went to, it's like a computer screen. It's not distracting me from the view, but I glance for a millisecond versus where'd my phone go,
Yeah.
So upgrading your car because of tech versus it's old. And I don't know about y'all, I run my cars right into the ground. If they're good cars, it's like, but now it's like, I need something more tech stuff.
Yes, tech seems to definitely be the driver for most people as far as anything.
Unintended.
Right? I know. So just real last quick question for you from me anyway, is looking ahead, what would, the ordinary person watch for in the next few months as these reports hopefully continue in a positive direction that would either signal better or tougher times? What would you watch for either way?
Yeah. I would look for employment to keep creeping up towards 60. I would look for pricing to creep down towards 60, right? And I would look for, if not a big increase every month, at least steady or up a half a point or more for the demand factors like new orders, and backlog and new export orders. If orders are flowing steadily enough and prices continue to settle down, meaning the increases are smaller every month, then I think you're going to continue to see an economy that's stronger and stronger and stronger.
Again, to that point, Susan, this is the summer, and it always picks up in September. So if it isn't already factored in early in July and August, or is it going to take off again in September? So we'll have to wait and see.
So we have seasonality factored in already. So that smooths it out. Yeah. Yeah. So not every one of these sub-indexes has seasonality in it, but those that need it, we do adjust it so that otherwise you'd see these, huge highs and lows. So that's already factored in for the indexes that need it.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Any final words, Susan?
No, it was a pleasure reporting on this month, and fingers crossed that we find our way out of the conflict in the Middle East and things settle down, and people are feeling better about the economy. And if you're in a job where you think AI can impact it, please be thinking about how to upskill and get ahead of that, because it's coming like the internet came, and it's an accelerant to humanity. Technology, some jobs will get replaced for sure, but what can you do as an individual to keep your skills not only current, but kind of on the forefront of that? I find the whole thing fascinating. 100% know that it's easier when you're retired and don't have to really worry about that, but it impacts everybody. So hopefully in a positive way in your collective lives, I hope.
I'd like to mention to our listeners, if you like the show, give us a like, give us a review, give us subscribe.
Yeah.
Send donations. All donations accepted. We have to pay Susan, I don't know, $1.38, I think, for your 30 minutes. Thank you all. And again, hit that subscribe button or the like button, and we'll see you in a couple of days when we have
Services report,
the services report, and we'll talk to you then.
Thanks.
Till then.
Thanks, Amy and Lou.
Thanks, Susan.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of Manufacturing Talk Radio with hosts Louis Weiss and Amy Niklas. Before you head out, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. For more information about the show and the manufacturing industry, head over to mfgtalkradio.com. That's mfgtalkradio.com.